Charles Arthur "Pretty Boy" Floyd, February 3, 1904 – October 22, 1934, was an American bank robber. He operated in the Midwest and West-South Central states, and his criminal exploits gained widespread press coverage in the 1930s. Like most other prominent outlaws of that era, he was killed by policemen. Historians have speculated as to which officers were at the event. Local or the FBI. Known accounts documents that local officers Robert Pyle and George Curran were present at his fatal shooting and also at his embalming. Floyd has continued to be a familiar figure in American popular culture, sometimes seen as notorious, but at other times viewed as a tragic figure, partly a victim of the hard times of the Great Depression in the United States. Early life and education. Charles Arthur Floyd was born in Bartow County, Georgia, in 1904. His family moved to Oklahoma in 1911, and he grew up there. As a youth, he spent considerable time in nearby Kansas, Arkansas and Missouri. Life of crime. Floyd was first arrested at the age of 18 after he stole $3.50 in coins from a local post office. 3 years later he was arrested for a payroll robbery on September 16, 1925 in St. Louis, Missouri, and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. He served 3.5 years before being granted parole. When paroled, Floyd vowed that he would never see the inside of another prison, entering into partnerships with more established criminals in the Kansas City underworld. He committed a series of bank robberies over the next several years. It was during this period that he acquired the nickname Pretty Boy. According to one account, when the payroll master targeted in a robbery described the 3 perpetrators to the police, he referred to Floyd as a mere boy, a pretty boy with apple cheeks. Like his contemporary babyface Nelson, Floyd despised his nickname. In 1929, Floyd was wanted in numerous cases. On March 9, he was arrested in Kansas City on investigation, and again on May 6 for vagrancy and suspicion of highway robbery. But he was released the next day. 2 days later, he was arrested in Pueblo, Colorado, and charged with vagrancy. He was fined $50.00 and sentenced to 60 days in jail. Floyd, under the alias Frank Mitchell, was arrested in Akron, Ohio, on March 8, 1930, charged in the investigation of the murder of an Akron police officer who had been killed during a robbery that evening. The law next caught up with Floyd in Toledo, Ohio, where he was arrested on suspicion on May 20, 1930. He was convicted of the Sylvania, Ohio bank robbery and sentenced on November 24, 1930, to 12 to 15 years in Ohio State Penitentiary. But he escaped. Floyd was a suspect in the deaths of Kansas City brothers Wally and Bolash, who were rum runners. They were found dead in a burning car on March 25, 1931. A month later, on April 23, members of his gang killed patrolman R.H. Kastner of Bowling Green, Ohio. On July 22, Floyd killed federal agent Curtis C. Burke in Kansas City, Missouri. In 1932, former Sheriff E.R.V. Kelly of McIntosh County, Oklahoma, was killed while trying to arrest Floyd on April 7. In November of that year, 3 members of Floyd's gang attempted to rob the Farmers and Merchants Bank in Boley, Oklahoma. Despite his life of crime, Floyd was viewed positively by the general public. When he robbed banks, he allegedly destroyed mortgage documents, but this has never been confirmed and may be myth. He was often protected by locals of Oklahoma, who referred to him as Robin Hood of the Cookson Hills. Kansas City Massacre. Floyd and Adam Richetti became the primary suspects in a June 17, 1933, gunfight known as the Kansas City Massacre that resulted in the deaths of 4 law enforcement officers. Though J. Edgar Hoover used the incident as ammunition to further empower the FBI to pursue Floyd, historians are divided as to whether or not he was involved. Another more likely suspect was gang member Sol Weisman, who resembled Floyd. Floyd adamantly denied his involvement in this fiasco. Apparently a botched attempt to free bank robber Frank Nash, who was in police custody. The gunfight was an attack by Vernon Miller and accomplices on lawmen escorting robber Frank Jelly Nash to a car parked at the Union Station in Kansas City, Missouri. 2 Kansas City, Missouri officers, Detective William Grooms and Patrolman Grant Schroeder, McAllister, Oklahoma Police Chief Otto Reed, and FBI Special Agent Ray Caffrey were killed. Nash was also killed as he was sitting in the car, shot in the head by his would-be rescuers. 2 other Kansas City police officers survived by slumping forward in the backseat and feigning death. As the gunman inspected the car, another officer responded from the station and fired at them, forcing them to flee. Miller was found dead on November 27, 1933 outside Detroit, Michigan, having been beaten and strangled. Floyd and Richetti were alleged to have been Miller's accomplices. Factors weighing against them included their apparent presence in Kansas City at the time, eyewitness identifications, which have been contested, Richetti's fingerprints said to have been recovered from a beer bottle at Miller's hideout, an underworld account naming Floyd and Richetti as the gunmen, and Hoover's firm advocacy of their guilt. Fellow bank robber Alvin Karpes, an acquaintance of Floyd's, claimed that Floyd confessed involvement to him. On the other side of the issue, the bandit alleged to have been Floyd was supposed to have been wounded by a gunshot to the shoulder in the attack, and Floyd's body showed no sign of this injury when examined later. The underworld account identifying Floyd and Richetti as the killers was offset by equally unreliable underworld accounts proclaiming their innocence or identifying others. The Floyd family has maintained that while Floyd admitted to many other crimes, he vehemently denied involvement in this one, as did Richetti. It has also been contended that this crime would have been inconsistent with Floyd's other criminal acts, as he was not otherwise known as a hired gun or, especially, a hired killer. Shortly after the attack, Kansas City police received a postcard dated June 30, 1933, from Springfield, Missouri, which read, "Dear Sirs, I, Charles Floyd, want it made known that I did not participate in the massacre of officers at Kansas City. Charles Floyd." The police department believed the note to be genuine. Floyd also reportedly denied involvement in the massacre to the FBI agents who had fatally wounded him. In addition, a recent book on the massacre attributes at least some of the killing to friendly fire by a lawman who was unfamiliar with his weapon. Based on ballistic tests. Death. On July 23, 1934, following the death of John Dillinger, Pretty Boy, Floyd was named Public Enemy No. 1. On October 22, 1934, Floyd was shot in a cornfield behind a house on Sprucevale Road between Beaver Creek State Park, in East Liverpool, Ohio, while being pursued by local law officers and FBI agents led by Melvin Purvis. Accounts differ on who shot him and the manner in which he was killed, having narrowly escaped ambush by FBI agents and other law enforcement agencies several times after the Kansas City Massacre. Floyd had a stroke of bad luck. On October 18, 1934, he and Richetti left Buffalo, New York, and the vehicle slid into a telephone pole in heavy fog. No one was injured, but the car was disabled. Fearing they would be recognized, Floyd and Richard T. sent 2 female companions to get a tow truck. They planned to have the women accompany the tow truck driver into a town and have the vehicle repaired, while the 2 men waited by the roadside. After dawn on October 19, motorist Joe Freeman and his son-in-law passed by, observing 2 men dressed in suits lying by the roadside. Feeling it was suspicious, he informed Wellsville, Ohio, Police Chief John H. Fultz. 3 officers, including Fultz, investigated. When Richard T. saw the lawmen, he fled into the woods, pursued by 2 officers, while Fultz went towards Floyd. Floyd immediately drew his gun and fired, and he and Fultz engaged one another in a gunfight, during which Fultz was wounded in the foot. After wounding Fultz, Floyd fled into the forest. The other 2 officers enlisted the help of local retired police officer Chester K. Smith, who had been a sniper during World War I, and subsequently captured Richard T. Floyd remained on the run, living on fruit, traveling on foot, and quickly becoming exhausted. At least 3 accounts exist of the following events: 1 given by the FBI, 1 by other people in the area, and 1 by local law enforcement. The accounts agree that, after obtaining some food at a local pool hall owned by a friend Charles Joy, Floyd hitched a ride in an East Liverpool neighborhood on October 22, 1934. He was spotted by the team of lawmen, at which point he broke from the vehicle and fled towards a tree line. Local retired officer Chester Smith fired first, hitting Floyd in the right arm, knocking him to the ground. At this point, the 3 accounts diverge. The FBI agents later attempted to claim all the credit, denying local law enforcement were even present at the shooting. According to the local police account, Floyd regained his footing and continued to run, at which point the entire team opened fire, knocking him to the ground. Floyd died from his wounds shortly thereafter. According to the FBI, 4 FBI agents, led by Purvis, and 4 members of the East Liverpool Police Department, led by Chief Hugh McDermott, were searching the area south of Clarkson, Ohio. In 2 separate cars, they spotted a car move from behind a corn crib, and then move back. Floyd then emerged from the car and drew a .45 caliber pistol, and the FBI agents opened fire. Floyd reportedly said, "I'm done for. You've hit me twice." Quote. Years later, Chester Smith, the retired East Liverpool police captain and sharpshooter, described events differently in a 1979 interview for Time magazine. Smith, who was credited with shooting Floyd first, stated that he had deliberately wounded, but not killed, Floyd. He added, "I knew Purvis couldn't hit him, so I dropped him with 2 shots from my .32 Winchester rifle." According to Smith's account, after being wounded, Floyd fell and did not regain his footing. Smith then disarmed Floyd. At that point, Purvis ran up and ordered, "Back away from that man. I want to talk to him." Purvis questioned Floyd briefly, and after receiving curses in reply ordered Agent Herman Ed Hollis to fire into him. Hollis then shot Floyd at point-blank range with a submachine gun, killing him. The interviewer asked if there was a cover-up by the FBI, and Smith responded, "Sure was, because they didn't want it to get out that it'd been killed that way." Quote, FBI agent Winfred E. Hopton disputed Chester Smith's claim in a letter to the editors of Time, published in the November 19, 1979, issue. In response to the Time article, Blasting a G-Man Myth, he stated that he was one of 4 FBI agents present when Floyd was killed, on a farm several miles from East Liverpool, Ohio. According to Hopton, members of the East Liverpool Police Department arrived only after Floyd was already mortally wounded. He also claimed that when the four agents confronted Floyd, Floyd turned to fire on them, and two of the four killed Floyd almost instantly. Additionally, while Smith's account said that Herman Hollis shot the wounded Floyd on Purvis's order, Hopton claimed that Hollis was not present. Hopton also stated Floyd's body was transported back to East Liverpool in Hopton's personal car. Floyd's body was embalmed and briefly viewed at the Sturgis Funeral Home in East Liverpool, Ohio, before being sent on to Oklahoma. Floyd's body was placed on public display in Sallisaw, Oklahoma. His funeral was attended by between 20,000 and 40,000 people and remains the largest funeral in Oklahoma history. He was buried in Athens, Oklahoma. Legacy. Music equals The Ballad of Pretty Boy Floyd equals. In March 1939, 5 years after Floyd's death, Woody Guthrie, a native of Oklahoma, wrote a protest song romanticizing Floyd's life, called The Ballad of Pretty Boy Floyd. The song has the form of a broadside, "Come all ye," ballad opening with the lines, "If you'll gather round me, children, a story I will tell, 'bout Pretty Boy Floyd, an outlaw. Oklahoma knew him well." The lyrics recount Floyd's supposed generosity to the poor, and contain the famous lines comparing foreclosing bankers to outlaws. As through this world you travel, you'll meet some funny men. Some will rob you with a six-gun, and some with a fountain pen. And as through your life you travel, yes, as through your life you roam, you won't never see an outlaw drive a family from their home. This song has been performed by many country and folk musicians and has been recorded many times. Ramblin' Jack Elliott, on his 1955 Woody Guthrie's Blues album. Bob Dylan, on the Smithsonian's 1988 Folkways, A Vision Shared, a tribute to Woody Guthrie and Leadbelly album. The Byrds, on their Sweetheart of the Rodeo album. Joan Baez on her 1962 In Concert album. Melanie on her album Madrugada. Guthrie's son Arlo Guthrie, on his album Precious Friend with Pete Seeger. Ghost Mice, on their split EP with Defiance, Ohio. The Dukes, on their album Your Daughters and Your Sons. Christy Moore, on his album Live in Dublin with Donal Lunny. Wall of Voodoo, on the CD and cassette versions of their 1988 live album The Ugly Americans in Australia. James Taylor, on the Cities Sampler Volume 4. Keepsakes, 1992. Floyd is additionally referred to in other popular music, including The Message, a rap by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Gentlemen of the Road, a song by Devil's Brigade on their 2000 self-titled album. Avenging Annie. The protagonist of Andy Pratt's 1973 song, Avenging Annie, sings of her relationship with Floyd, a sensitive outlaw who is a killer and thief, which leads to her having the phrase, Avenger from Oklahoma, added to her name. Pratt said that he wrote his song after listening to Woody Guthrie's The Ballad of Pretty Boy Floyd. Bands Pretty Boy Floyd, American band, a glam metal band most famous for their 1989 debut album Leather Boys with Electric Toys. Pretty Boy Floyd, Canadian band, a hard rock band from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Literature. In John Steinbeck's 1939 novel The Grapes of Wrath, the character Marjode refers several times to Pretty Boy Floyd as a young man driven to a tragic fate by social injustice and the Great Depression. Pretty Boy Floyd, a fictionalized account of Floyd's life by Larry McMurtry and Diana Ossana, was published in 1995. ISBN 0671891650. Comics. Dick Tracy's most famous adversary, Flat Top Jones, has many similarities to Pretty Boy Floyd. Flat Top claims to be a freelancer from the Crookston Hills, parody of Cooks and Hills in Oklahoma, and the comic strip references Flat Top's involvement in the Kansas City Massacre. Quote, Floyd later appeared as a character in the 2008 comic book Pretty Baby Machine film. Bob Peterson played Floyd in the FBI story 1959. A film, Pretty Boy Floyd, was made in 1960 by Herbert J. Leader, starring John Erickson. Robert Conrad played Floyd in the 1965 film Young Dillinger. Another film, A Bullet for Pretty Boy, was released in 1970, starring Fabian Forte. Floyd was played by Steve Cannelly in the 1973 film Dillinger. Martin Sheen took the title role in the 1974 TV movie, The Story of Pretty Boy Floyd. Floyd was portrayed by Bo Hopkins in the 1975 TV movie, The Kansas City Massacre. Floyd was portrayed by Channing Tatum in the 2009 film Public Enemies, starring Christian Bale and Johnny Depp. In the film, he is falsely depicted as being killed before John Dillinger. Floyd was also portrayed in Lawless by English actor Gary Oldman. Sports. Undefeated retired professional boxer Floyd Mayweather, Jr.'s boxing alias was Pretty Boy Floyd, as his first name being Floyd. He would later change his boxing alias to Money. Video games. In the video game Team Fortress 2, the Scout class has a weapon named the Pretty Boy's Pocket Pistol, a short-barrel holdout pistol popular at the time for easy concealment. Part of the same set is a scattergun named after Babyface Nelson and a suitcase of money named in honor of John Dillinger. In the Grand Theft Auto 4 DLC, Ballad of Gay Tony title is a possible spin-off of the song, The Ballad of Pretty Boy Floyd. In the Fallout 2, there is a character named Pretty Boy Floyd, as well as quest titled Track Down Pretty Boy Lloyd, Recover the Stolen Money, and make an example of him. See also George Birdwell, List of Depression-era outlaws. King, Jeffrey. The Life and Death of Pretty Boy Floyd, Atlas Books. 1998. ISBN 0-87338-582-9. Further reading. Crime. Floyd flushed. Time. October 22, 1934. Retrieved 4 September 2013. Sister of infamous gunslinger, Pretty Boy Floyd, recalls a kindly brother. Associated Press. May 14, 2002. Brown, Vivian. October 31, 1934. Outlaws who lived in Heel folk legend were Charlie Floyd's heroes. Girl Who Won Only interview tells his life story. Kentucky New Era. Geringer, Joseph. Charles Arthur Floyd. Pretty Boy, from Cooks and Hills. Crime Library. McMurtry. Larry and Osana. Diana. Pretty Boy Floyd. Simon & Schuster. ISBN 0-671-89167-7. Historical fiction. Michael Wallace. Pretty Boy. The Life and Times of Charles Arthur Floyd, St. Martin's Press. New York. 1992. ISBN 0-312-07071-3. Merle Clayton Union Station, Massacre 1975 B.M. Bob's Merrill ISBN 0-672-51899-6. Kansas City Massacre FBI History. Woody Guthrie at the Wayback Machine. Archived October 27, 2009. Woody Guthrie pages, which in turn rely on the liner notes for Bobby Barnett. American Heroes and Western Legends. Their Family Records. BCD 16121-R. 1997. Sturgis House. East Liverpool, Ohio. Shootout in Bixby. Legendary lawman killed by Pretty Boy Floyd. Task force led by Sheriff Kelly. Legendary sheriff tracks down Pretty Boy Floyd, but killed during shootout. Death of Pretty Boy Floyd. Encyclopedia of Oklahoma History and Culture. Floyd. Charles Arthur. Charles Arthur, Pretty Boy Floyd. Bank robber. Find a grave. January 1, 2001.